I don't know if I can give us good analogies. I might try. I should actually say, I was driving, I remember that how much I used to, when you say you used to be a .com millionaire, we made a lot of money from data, and actually we made a lot of money from data when people, through laziness of users. So one of the businesses that I ran used to run competitions, and it only made money if people who signed up to the competitions were too lazy to untick a tick box, which allowed us to then sell that data on to a third party. I mean, that still happens, despite European legislation and the like. But that data is of much less value to anyone now, because there are now these big resources of data. I think they're Facebook and they're Google, and those two companies know more about their customers and us as individuals than probably any companies have in history. Maybe Tesco Clubcard knows quite a lot as well. I think that consumers are more and more willing to actually hand over bits of their personal information to companies that they know, companies that they trust, if they're given a good enough reason for it. I think that one of the challenges that some consumers would have with having Google is that it's not always clear why you needed to know the information. So of course, my emails would go back for 6 years, 100%, I really want to know them, I really want to have access to them in 5 years' time. But every ad I clicked from the last 3 years, that makes money for Google, but what's the clear benefit for me as a consumer? As it goes, the Google Dashboard product, which is designed to allow you to take control of your data, can be really useful. So I use it the whole time to find websites that I forgot what the website address was that I visited, or the advert I clicked. But what's weird is that Google don't really go out and shout about that, and I think that potentially as consumers become both more savvy and willing to part with data, they'll expect more about companies expressing to them really clearly, well, A, I'm taking this data, and B, this is what I'm using it for, and C, this is how holding this data can benefit you as the consumer just as much as it can benefit me to sell much more targeted adverts. I think the other place that has data, which is really clear, is Facebook. I think the reason for Facebook having the data is much more apparent to the user, which is why we give much more information about ourselves there. If I was to look at what I've got on my Facebook, I joined it as soon as it became open to people who weren't at university, so late 2006, and it's got everyone that I'm friends with. Well, sorry, it starts off with my educational history, the history of all of the companies I've worked for. It then knows who all my friends are. It knows my past relationship history. It has photographs of me tagged all around the world, sometimes with location data, but the photographs reveal information about my friends that you might not think about, which is that even if I'm not friends with someone, you can tell who I know because I'm tagged in the same photo as them. And Facebook are able to know who's a more important friend to me, tagged in the same photo then. So some of my friends, I don't actually talk to very much on Facebook, but I still see their information pretty high up because it knows, well, I obviously see them a lot in the real world. And something I should explain, a lot of people don't think about, is when you log on to Facebook, you see that what you see is called your top news. Now that top news is based on Facebook's EdgeRank algorithm, which is fantastic. What it does is it looks at how many times you talk to someone on Facebook, how many times you comment on someone's link or posting on Facebook, how many times you chat to each other, how many times you're tagged in the same photo. And it uses that to show you information about the people that are most relevant to you. So I have like 500 friends on Facebook. Some people I never hear from in my wall, other than when they get married or break up or have a child or something, because it knows that that's probably important to everyone. But that's a lot of information that company has over you. And some people think that that's a big change. When you think about it, it sort of is. But is it really? In the old days, sort of 200 years ago, here's an analogy actually. You normally were kind of born and died and worked in the same place. So you brought up in a place, you didn't do what you did, so you went from Seattle to London. And because you were born and brought up in the same place, people know a lot about you. They know all sorts of information about you. Everyone knows about everyone else's lives. But we now live much more complicated lives. And so for the last sort of like 30 years, we're able to live relatively anonymously. So you could go and move to London and no one would know about your back history. They wouldn't know everything you did. Nowadays, Facebook kind of returns us to this kind of this old world where we can know everything about everyone based on what they've done on Facebook. It does make, actually, though, when you meet people, a bit less exciting, because you meet someone and then you become Facebook friends with them, and then actually, do I need to hear your backstory? No, I can just quickly flip through the kind of the photo highlights of your life, and people can see me that I used. No, I don't need to explain to people. I used to be 4 stone heavier, because all they need to do is go back to the photos of me from 2006 and see, whoa, I'm big. It can ask the question like, how did you lose weight? But look, that's all great. So I obviously think Facebook's quite good, and I have a question about it. But think about what Facebook now enables third-party businesses to do. So you can now use Facebook Connect on your website to let people instantly sign up to your service and allow me to share my information with third parties, people I might never have heard of actually. The Facebook they tried a really interesting line that they step 2 steps forward and they kind of go back 1.5 steps. So yesterday they started allowing third-party websites, third-party applications to see your home address and your home phone number. And then some people started saying, well, there's a lot of spammy applications that you click OK to and you accept, and the privacy settings are a bit complicated, so now they've turned that back off again. And last year there was so much press coverage about that their privacy policy was so long, it was longer than the US Constitution, and there were 150 privacy options. And I had quite a few pieces knocking them for that. But then, to their credit, I think they then said, no, let's actually simplify this. It's still pretty complicated though. And I think that's something they're going to have to grapple with, as are all the companies that use that information. And there's this other thing. I was on the radio like 2 weeks ago, justifying Facebook's $50 billion valuation. I think they're worth a lot more. And I said I just joked that leaving Facebook is like learning Esperanto and expecting your friends to still understand you. Meaning that you can't jump to another social network, like so if Google actually finding it around for launching a decent one. I'm not going to join it because all my friends are already on Facebook, and I've got all that shared history, the 500 friends, the photographs, everything else there. But that also means that it makes you question what choice people have over to join it and the privacy policies that lie behind it. So when someone reaches 13 years old, tend to want to join Facebook. I'm now allowed to join Facebook. If I wanted to join ERCOT, Google's one, why would I? Even if the privacy policies are better, even if I wanted to join Diaspora, a new social network, or Path, or any of the other ones that have sprung up, I'm not going to, because everyone I know in my life, the people who matter to me, are on Facebook. So if I have to join Facebook, do the terms and conditions and the privacy policies that underlie it, are they fair? And I think there's something, as Facebook grow, they're going to have to justify it more and more and more. The only other kind of thought is obviously security is really important. I think that companies obviously need to think about that. But that where did you go thing, actually is quite scary, and it made me realise why I no longer say where I go on Twitter or Facebook. So I've just been in America to go to visit Microsoft and onto Groupon, and so I was in Seattle and Chicago. But I didn't tweet at all whilst I was there, other than retweeting a few things, and I didn't put on Facebook. Actually I did put it, I'll explain why. I didn't tweet because I don't want people to know my house is empty, please go in and burgle me. Or just found it a bit creepy, people knowing. And someone said to me, but you're crazy, when you're live on Channel 4 News, there's like 1 million people saying you're not at home. But I figure that, yeah, okay, but they don't know I'm not going to be at home at midnight, which is probably when I'm going to be burgled. But I have now, and I wasn't doing it on Facebook, because actually whenever I put it on Facebook, my grandparents would send me a Facebook message saying, very worried that you're sharing your address. So now I've created a new use one of the new features where it allows you to group lists of friends. So I've created a list of sort of about 90 people who I'm 100% sure are not going to burgle my house. And I haven't put my grandparents on that list. when I'm saying, which I was, oh, it's just a really interesting time in Chicago, they're not sending messages. I think that the thing is, I mean, that tool is great, but again, Facebook aren't really out there shouting about here's all the different tools and products that you can use to help control your privacy. So I think that the big challenge for both companies and for anyone else in this sector is just communicating, here's how to control it, here's why, and this is why we've got your data, and this is how it benefits you.
Thank you.